Isn't it contradictory that I need to discipline myself in order to realize freedom? The one who has a strong sense of bondage, only he needs to be freed. Who else? The one who is abiding in freedom requires no freedom. Freedom is his very breath. So there is no question of striving after freedom. So when we say freedom, obviously there is somebody to whom the word is applicable. Freedom word is applicable only to the bonded mind. Now what is discipline with respect to a bonded mind? What is discipline? The bonded mind behaves in a particular way. The particular way is such that it keeps the bondage perpetual. It's a self-furthering, self-sustaining, vicious cycle which masks the bondage, which names the bondage as freedom itself, and in the continuation of which there is no apparent break. It can continue on its own ad infinitum. There would be nothing that would come to break the cycle, because the one who is in the cycle is the bonded mind itself, suffering, frustrated, nevertheless hopeful and satisfied. What breaks this cycle is called discipline. Discipline is that which can break the self-sustaining cycle of bondage. The free man who abides in his freedom anyway has a beautiful natural order in his mind, thoughts and actions. He needs no discipline. In other words, a particular divine discipline is already there. So we can't even call it discipline. It would be redundant. We will not use the word discipline with respect to the realized mind, the tranquil mind. We'll have to come back and use the word discipline only with respect to the bonded mind. The bonded mind requires something a little beyond itself. That which is beyond itself is not very distant from it, it is close by. And because it is close by, it can come from another fragment of the same mind. Or it can come from something or somebody the mind perceives as an external object. But what is certain is that the cycle is not going to break itself. That the cycle of bondage has no interest in its own dissolution. Left to itself, it would continue and continue. Time would keep passing and passing. And that is the reason why time, age, and experience are such useless words when it comes to realization. Because time can keep passing and passing. Nothing has happened that can disrupt the cycle. Discipline is that which can potentially disrupt the cycle. Nothing else is discipline. So discipline is a break from the normal pattern. Remember please, every pattern has a great interest in its own continuation. The pattern will not just disappear. It needs something. It lives in cause and effect, and even to disappear it requires a cause. It requires a cause. Discipline is that. Discipline is that cause. Getting it? You will require it. You will require it. You will require it as long as you do not require it. Till you come to a point where the word freedom itself becomes meaningless for you, you will require discipline. There is no doubt about it. It would be a great place to be in where even the most arbitrary, most random action has an inner discipline contained in it. So much so that one doesn't even have to bother what he is doing, what he is thinking, what the quality of actions are. That would be a great place to be in. But till the time one is not there, till the time one holds the idea that I am not there, discipline is needed. And yes, there is a funny part to it that I am not there is only an idea. But we all hold that idea. I am not yet there. I have to reach somewhere. That idea expresses itself in the form of our urge for achievement, in the form of our urge to know, learn, get, acquire, become. Till you want to become, you need that discipline. Till you have an urge to achieve, you need a particular discipline because the mind is bonded. So yes, discipline has definitely an important place in the process of realization. So be disciplined till you realize that discipline is redundant. Have all the respect for discipline till you realize that all this doesn't matter. But be honest. Don't give up discipline before you have actually come to that realization. That can be one of the cunningnesses of the pattern. Well, you are already there. Why do you need discipline? Discipline is for the man in neighborhood. The boy next door needs discipline. You don't need discipline. You don't need discipline. We see discipline, we said discipline is that which breaks the pattern. You already have a pattern to your life. Are we very clear that no pattern will arise, awaken and break itself? No pattern is suicidal. Are we aware of that? It will not just on its own say, I'm done, bye bye. You don't read, you won't read. You have not read since 5 years, you won't read for the next 5 years, entire life. 1,000 lives are insufficient. The pattern will continue. It has continued always. Walking down the same road 1,000 times, can you reach a new place? Please. What is the then point of a pattern based living or age or experience or time? If you are just in the same groove again and again, obviously you can't come out of it. The well has the frog and the frog may keep jumping, hopping 1,000 times, but all its movements would still be within the well. The well can't be broken. The walls have not been breached. Your movements may give you some kind of consolation. I'm doing something. I'm doing something. What you're doing is what you like doing within the well of your thought. That's one of the most difficult things for the mind to grasp, and even more difficult to action it. That's why real change is so difficult to come about. Superficial change is very easy. Go change your dress, go change your makeup. Change your words, the words in which you express the same old rotten stuff. But real change is so hard to come about. Because real change is definitely a kind of suicide. Mind does not want that. The pattern does not want that. That is the reason why discipline is so scary. Any kind of discipline. And the mind will come up with 1,000 reasons against discipline. Do I need discipline? I'm mature, adult, reasonable, fit to take care of myself. Do I need discipline? And remember, whenever there would be a question of discipline, there would always be the other. Even when you are saying that I am disciplining myself, there is still an other in the form of another fragment of mind. There would always be another. And wherever there is another, this pattern would feel threatened because the other is disciplining me. And I don't like it. Who is the other to discipline me? What authority does he have? And how does he know that he is doing the right thing? Beautiful arguments.
पर क्या इसमें ऐसे हो सकता है कि जैसे तुमने रिकॉग्नाइज तो कर लिया कि ये पैटर्न है और फिर ठीक है उस पैटर्न के ऊपर काम करने के लिए तुम डिसिप्लिन भी लगाने को तैयार हो गए और डिसिप्लिन में हो, क्या ऐसा हो सकता है कि कुछ टाइम बाद वो डिसिप्लिन ही कंडीशनिंग हो जाए और अब तुम एक पैटर्न से निकल के दूसरे पैटर्न में फंस चुके हो?
That is the reason discipline is something very, very conscious. Discipline is not a dead principle. Discipline is not an ideal. Discipline is something very radical and dynamic. Are you getting it?
इसको एग्जांपल जैसे मतलब कि अब मुझे
Discipline is not about getting up at 4 in the morning and taking a bath. It's not a dead routine.
जैसे मतलब मैं इसको इस एग्जांपल के फॉर्म में समझना चाहूँगी कि जैसे ठीक है, अब समझ में आ रहा है कि तुम अपने ऊपर काम कर रहे हो, ठीक है, और तुम चाहते हो कि अब तुम्हें अपने सेंसेस को भी ट्रेन करना है कि वो इन्वॉल्व जाएं, ठीक है, और उसमें से एक सेंस तुम्हारी ज़ुबान भी है, ठीक। तो अब इस ज़ुबान को कि सही वर्ड्स आएँ, पॉजिटिव वर्ड्स आएँ, तुम उस हिसाब से ट्रेन कर रहे हो। तो ये उसमें भी मतलब अब अगर तुम सच भी बोल रहे हो, पॉजिटिवली तुम सच भी बोल रहे हो, ठीक है, पर वो अब ये तुम अपने ऊपर काम कर रहे हो क्योंकि अब तुमने खुद को कमिटमेंट दी है कि मैंने अपनी सेंसेस को ट्रेन करना है, डिसिप्लिन करना है, सच बोलना है और कॉन्शियसली सच बोलना है और स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्डली बोलना है, घुमा फिरा के नहीं बोलना। पर ये सामने वाला नहीं भी समझेगा और फिर जो तुम्हें फीडबैक आएगी वो
Discipline is always inward. The first mistake is that discipline means speaking the truth to somebody. So, your very definition of discipline is other centric. That is one thing. And out of this flawed definition, there is arising a problem. And what is the problem? That what do I do when I speak the truth and the other does not respond in the way I want him to? Both the discipline and the problem arising out of this discipline are other centric. Discipline hence is not something so casual. Remember, we said mind lives in patterns. Discipline breaks that pattern. What do we mean by a pattern of the mind? All patterns of the mind have others at the center. Now, the discipline will not work if it still is other centric.
पर अगर इसमें मतलब कि मैंने क्योंकि मैं अपने आप को ट्रेन करना चाहता हूँ और एक अपने आप से कमिटमेंट है कि जब भी बोलना है या तो पॉजिटिव वर्ड्स बोलना है, सच बोलना है, ताकि किसी भी तरह के बोझ।
How can you speak to others if you are not sitting in the truth? What do you mean by speaking the truth to others? Is discipline about morality? What do you mean by the truth? Lao Tzu had a great problem saying that the truth can never be spoken. And you are repeatedly saying that whenever I'll speak the truth. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Speaking the truth. Speaking the truth only means behaving in a particular way to the other. No, that is not discipline. Such discipline will invariably crumble. This discipline is arising out of the ego because where the other is, there the ego is. And a discipline arising out of the ego will be consumed by the ego. I spoke the truth, whatever that means. I spoke the truth and yet he was harsh to me and that hurts my ego. So next time onwards, no truth for you, mister. For everybody else, I'll be truthful. But you have had it. You will only get this and that from me. what arises from the ego will only serve the needs of the ego, nothing else. This discipline is of no value.
जैसे कुछ लोग सच को भी कि रिलेशन बना रहे या सामने वाला प्लीज रहे, वो कहते हैं कि जो मतलब कि बोलना है थोड़ा घुमा के बोलो, थोड़ा शहद लगा के बोलो.
Again, even right now you see, this is a continuation of the same pattern. This question and the last question are in the same pattern because you are still talking about others. There is no discipline.
तो अब इसमें अगर मुझे क्लैरिटी चाहिए, मुझे अब अगर क्लैरिटी चाहिए, क्योंकि अब तो मुझे नहीं मिल रही, मतलब मैं समझ गई कि हाँ ईगो का कैसे वो हो रहा है, बट
so maybe a fundamental discipline would be, I would not let the other be so significant. And this would be a dynamic discipline because the other becomes significant in 1,000 ways. It's not predictable. Sometimes the other becomes important by being very good. Sometimes the other becomes important by being spiteful. Sometimes the other becomes important when you miss him. Sometimes the other becomes important when you don't want him to come to you. So this is a very dynamic discipline. It's still the other dominating me. It's still the other. In the marketplace, I'm buying something. I'm still looking at it from the eyes of the other. How would I look when he or she looks at me? The other is still so important. Are you getting it? That is the reason why a discipline without understanding does not survive the mechanics of the ego. It crumbles. In fact, it is no discipline at all. It is no discipline at all. Yeah?
थोड़ा सा समझ आया.
Once you know the pattern, there are two ways to enter into discipline if you want to go further into it. One is, even the most pattern based mind cannot be very far from its own source. You cannot go too far away from your mother.
Okay.
You may be the most conditioned, habituated mind, yet wisdom is never too far away. Never too far away. So there is the way of intelligence. I am not an idiot, and though I am pattern based, in a moment of explosive awareness, I could see that I have been stupid. And I let that remain. It was so explosive that its impact could not be just forgotten or wished away. I let that remain with me. I saw the futility of all my actions. It could even happen when you see the result of your actions. Even that is possible. This is, for example, the case of the robber. You have heard the story of Valmiki. You know his story. What is his story?
वो पहले डाकू थे.
So I am living in a pattern. What is my pattern?
लूटना.
This and that. Rob. One day he goes home and he asks a question which is essentially a question of self-interest. There is nothing very, very special about this question. It's a question in self-interest. He has been prompted by somebody. He goes home and asks his wife, his kids, that I bring the loot home and you all have a good time feasting over it, I'll go to hell, Nark, for what I have been doing, looting, murder. Will you come with me there? Tell me honestly, will you come? And it's a simple question, you can ask your partner that you are sharing all the goodies, will you also share the baddies? And it's a very, a businessman like question. Profit is being shared, loss must also be shared. So it's a businessman like question. Nothing very special about the question. Wife says no. And the man wakes up forever. It's an explosion. He says, what the hell am I doing then? And the robber becomes a saint immediately. This is the way of intelligence. All I wanted was to take care of my self-interest. But I was honest about it. I gathered the courage. I went to my wife and asked point blank, will you come with me? Most of us have no guts to ask point blank questions to our spouses. You may be thinking of a lot of things, but you cannot go to your spouse and ask like this. You know that all the dearness will dissolve in no time. Tomorrow the divorce papers will be filed. You may be suspecting that he has a very pretty secretary in his office, but you dare not go and ask him, have you slept with her? That would be too much. You can have all kinds of doubts and suspicions, and you can ask an oblique question here and there, but you can't ask point blank. It's very difficult. And you also are afraid, what if he too replies point blank, yes, I have. You ask point blank, have you slept with her? And he replies point blank, of course I have. What will you do then? So you dare not ask. He had that courage. He asked. And that was the point that disrupted his pattern. The robber becomes the saint. This is the way of intelligence. Then there is the way of faith. The way of intelligence is one aspect of your being disrupting your mind. It is arising from within. No external source is required. No external source is required. There is something within your mind, your own self-interest, which is helping you break the pattern. It's a little bit like standing in front of the mirror and you're overweight, and one day after taking the bath, you stand naked in front of the mirror and you look at yourself and you say, what the hell? If I can't bear to look at myself, then surely it's a serious situation. Or the doctor tells you, the second is the way of faith. You are continuing in your patterns and you see nothing wrong with the pattern. You are happy. You say, I am leading a contented, happy life. There is nothing much. Nice family, 2 kids, little bit of money, couple of vacations every year, everything is all right. And then somebody comes to you and says, no, it is not all right. And you do not know why he is saying all this. But sheerly out of faith, you take his words, and you take his words very seriously, close to your heart. And you let that source disrupt your patterns. This is the way of faith. In the kind of times we are living today, the way of faith will be very, very difficult. Extremely difficult. Because it will be extremely difficult for you go by the way of intelligence. use the same mind to look at its patterns. Ask yourself sharply, are my patterns really giving me even happiness? How am I benefiting? How am I benefiting? And let it arise from there. Getting it?